From the rim, the Grand Canyon appears completely exposed. Its cliffs stand beneath an ocean. Its bands of red, white, and gray rock can be followed from far below. The Colorado River cuts through a landscape whose oldest visible rocks form nearly 2 billion. Nothing seems hidden here. And yet, the canyon is filled with doors. Some are narrow cracks high above the river. Others open behind fallen rock or inside cliffs that can be reached only by technical. Beyond them lie passages shaped by water, chambers sealed from sunlight, and deposits that may have remained undisturbed for thousands of years. The Grand Canyon region is estimated to contain roughly 1,000 caves, although only a few hundred have. That fact has inspired an extraordinary question. What might still be concealed inside the canyon? The answer depends on what we mean by. Grand Canyon caves have preserved mineral formations, the bones and dung of extinct animals, fragile traces of ancient climates, and objects left by people long before written history. Archaeologists have also recorded thousands of sites across the park, even though only a small portion of its immense terrain has received intensive. So there are real discoveries still to be made. But there is also a second Grand Canyon one. In this version, restricted caves become evidence of a government cover-up. Natural chambers become underground cities. Every missing map suggests a secret. And one newspaper article, published more than a century ago, becomes proof that ancient Egyptians crossed an ocean and built a hidden complex beneath Arizona. The story begins with a man named E. Kincaid. According to the article, Kincaid was traveling down the Colorado River when he noticed marks on a cliff. He climbed to an entrance and entered a passage that seemed to have been cut by human hand. Inside, he supposedly found an enormous system of tunnels and chambers. There were copper objects, tablets covered with unfamiliar symbols, statues, weapons, mummies, and a seated figure that the newspaper compared to the Buddha. The architecture appeared to combine Egyptian and Asian influence. The discovery was said to be so important that the Smithsonian Institution had become involved. If even part of this account were true, it would force historians to rewrite the ancient history. But there is a problem. No authenticated artifact from the cavern has ever been produced. No verified photograph of the interior. No confirmed location. And no archaeological investigation has found an Egyptian settlement. Yet the legend survived. It survives because the canyon really does. It survives because many archaeological sites are protected from public entry. And it survives because the landscape is so vast that almost any story. To discover what is really hidden here, we must follow two trails. One leads into the newspaper archive. The other leads much deeper into the geology, archaeology, and living traditions of the Grand Canyon itself. On April 5, 1909, readers of the Arizona Gazette encountered a remarkable headline. It announced explorations inside the Grand Canyon and mysteries from an immense cavern being brought to light. The article had no named author. Its central figure was G. E. Kincaid, described as an explorer and hunter who had worked for the Smithsonian. Kincaid claimed that he had discovered the cavern several months earlier while traveling alone along the Colorado River. He said the entrance stood high above the river, beyond a difficult. Marks beside it suggested that someone had once used the location. After entering, he followed steps into a passage and reached a large central chamber. From there, tunnels extended in several directions. The details became more spectacular as the story continued. One room was described as a shrine. At its center sat a figure with crossed legs and a flower in each hand. Elsewhere were copper tools, hard metal weapons, carved faces, tablets, bowls, and walls covered with symbols. A crypt supposedly contained rows of mummies. Some chambers held seeds, fabrics, and objects unlike anything known from the indigenous cultures of. The newspaper suggested that the people behind the cavern had come from somewhere across the Pacific, perhaps from Egypt or. It even proposed that the discovery might reveal the ancestral homeland of an ancient civilization. The story used the language of science. Measurements were provided. Rooms were assigned purposes. Artifacts were sorted into categories. A supposed professor named S. A. Jordan was connected to the investigation, and the Smithsonian name appeared. This precision made the account feel documented. But precise details are not the same as. A genuine archaeological discovery of this scale would normally create a large paper trail. There would be field notes, maps, photographs, correspondence, shipping records, artifact numbers, laboratory reports, and publications by other researchers. Museums would preserve the objects, or at least records explaining where they had gone. In the Kincaid story, that trail ends with the newspaper. No confirmed expedition report has emerged from the Smithsonian Archive. No collection of artifacts can be linked to Kincaid's alleged cavern. Neither the explorer nor the professor has been securely connected to the roles described in the Gazette did not reveal the location clearly enough for independent verification. It did not publish photographs of the chambers or arrange for outside experts to examine the. After presenting what should have been one of the greatest discoveries in American history, the paper produced no documented. Then there is the language of the story itself. The objects are described through a mixture of cultural labels: Egyptian, East Asian, Buddhist, and vaguely. These traditions came from different places and periods, yet the article blended them into a single exotic civilization. That mixture tells us more about popular imagination in the early 20th century than it does about ancient America. At the time, newspapers competed for attention with stories of lost races, buried treasure, mysterious ruins, and explorers entering unknown worlds. Archaeology was advancing rapidly, but sensational reporting often placed speculation beside fact. The Kincaid article was perfectly designed. It offered a lone adventurer, a secret entrance, foreign treasure, mummies, strange writing, and the authority of a famous national institution. It contained everything a mystery needed except evidence. Suppose, for a moment, that a Smithsonian expedition really removed objects from a hidden grand. What evidence should remain? The first would be the artifacts themselves. Archaeologists do not identify an object as Egyptian because it looks unusual. They examine the material, manufacturing method, artistic style, inscriptions, age, and the layer in which it was. They compare it with securely dated objects from other sites. Modern laboratories can also test pigments, metals, fibers, wood, and human remains. Not one object from Kincaid's alleged discovery has passed through this. The second form of evidence would be contact. An artifact found in an undisturbed floor can be connected to ash, food remains, building phases, and other objects. This relationship helps establish when and how people used a site. Remove the context, and even a genuine object becomes far harder to understand. The newspaper provided a dramatic inventory, but no documented excavation layers, no sample locations, and no chain of custody. The third form would be independent confirmation. Large underground complexes leave traces. Entrances require. Excavations require workers, equipment, food, transport. Researchers write letters. Institutions. Specimens arrive in boxes and are entered into. Other scholars inspect them and sometimes disagree about what they mean. In this case, none of those ordinary signs has been verified. Supporters of the legend often interpret the missing evidence as proof of suppression. The absence of records, they argue, shows that the records were. The closed caves show that something is being guarded. The lack of a public location shows that the location is secret. But this reasoning creates a claim that can never be tested. Every missing piece becomes evidence for the story instead of evidence against it. The landscape adds another layer of confusion. Maps of the Grand Canyon include names such as Isis Temple, Osiris Temple, Tower of Ra, Buddha Temple, Vishnu Temple, and Shiva Temple. Taken out of context, these names can sound like clues left by ancient visitors. They are not. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, American surveyors and mapmakers gave many of the canyon's buttes and towers names drawn from world religions and mythology. Geologist Clarence Dutton helped establish this convention because the formations reminded him of enormous. The names were applied by modern mapmakers. They are not archaeological evidence of Egyptians, Buddhists, or Hindus. This does not prove that ancient people never traveled farther than historians currently. Archaeology changes when new evidence appears. Unexpected trade networks, migrations, and human journeys have been demonstrated many times. But extraordinary possibilities still require physical. For Egyptians in the Grand Canyon, that evidence has not appeared. What has appeared is a single sensational newspaper story, repeated through books, television programs, websites, and videos until repetition began to resemble confirmation. The mystery therefore changes. Instead of asking where the Egyptian cavern is, we should ask why the story feels believable. Part of the answer lies inside the canyon's real caves, places that are restricted, difficult to reach, and filled with discoveries far older and stranger than many visitors. The Grand Canyon did not begin as a single hollow. Its walls are made from many layers, formed in different environments across immense spans. Some began as sand dunes. Others formed from mud, river deposits, coastal plains, or the floors of ancient cities. Among these layers are thick beds of limestone. When slightly acidic water enters cracks in limestone, it slowly dissolves. Over long periods, small fractures can widen into passages, shafts, and chambers. Later, erosion may cut into the surrounding cliff and expose an entrance high above them. This process helps explain why a cave can appear in a place that now seems almost impossible. It was not constructed above the canyon floor. The canyon eroded around it. Inside these natural chambers, stable temperatures and the dry desert climate can preserve materials that would quickly decay outside. Grand Canyon caves have protected fossil bones, animal hair, dung, eggshell, plant remains, and ancient pack rat myths. Some deposits record the final ice age and reveal animals that no longer live in the region. In one famous example, caves preserve bones, hair, and dung from the Shasta ground sloth, an extinct animal that lived in the canyon more than 11,000 years ago. These remains are not treasure, but to a scientist, they can reveal ancient diets, vanished ecosystems, and changes in climate. A layer of dung may contain more reliable information about the past than a room filled with unverified. The caves also shelter living animals. Grand Canyon National Park supports 22 bat species, and caves provide essential habitat for some of them. Human entry can disturb roosts, damage formations, contaminate delicate environments, or destroy evidence that has survived for millennia. This is why cave locations are often protected and public caving inside the park is prohibited. The restrictions are real, but their existence does not confirm a cover-up. They protect fossils, archaeology, wildlife, and visitors. Cave passages can contain unstable rock, vertical drops, oxygen-poor or otherwise hazardous air, flash flood hazards, or surfaces so fragile that a single footprint changes them permanently. History has already shown how quickly damage can occur. In 1976, a fire left burning by careless visitors destroyed irreplaceable fossil material inside. Once that evidence was lost, it could never be returned to its original state. Protected caves, therefore, create a difficult tension. Scientists and tribal communities have valid reasons to restrict, yet the absence of public access allows online storytellers to claim that officials must be hiding something more dramatic. In reality, the known contents of Grand Canyon caves are already revealed. They preserve a record of extinct animals, changing environments, and human activity reaching back. And among the most mysterious objects ever recovered are small animals made not from stone or metal, but from a single split willow twig. Between 2,000 and 4,000 years ago, someone entered a remote Grand Canyon cave carrying a willow branch. The branch was split, bent, and wrapped until it formed the body of an animal, usually a deer or bighorn sheep. Some figures were pierced with a tiny stick resembling a spear. Others contained animal dung. The finished objects were often placed beneath stones in caves that were not used as ordinary homes. Their exact purpose remains uncertain. They may have been connected to hunting rituals, spiritual practices, or relationships between people and the animals. Whatever their meaning, their careful placement shows that hidden caves had significance long before modern treasure hunting. These figurines belong to a much larger human history. The oldest artifacts found in the park are nearly 12,000 years old. Early hunters moved through a colder southwest. Later, communities adapted to changing environments by gathering plants, hunting game, and moving between the river, side canyons, springs. Over time, people cultivated corn, beans, and squash where water and soil. They made pottery, stored food, built homes, and created ceremonial spaces. Small masonry structures appeared near fields and travel routes. Granaries were placed in protected alcoves and high cliff walls, where harvested food could remain dry and safe. From a distance, some granaries resemble sealed entrances. They are occasionally presented online as doors to hidden. Their real purpose was more practical, but no less. In an environment shaped by heat, drought, steep terrain, and sudden floods, storing food could determine whether a family survived. Near Bright Angel Creek, archaeologists have studied the remains of a settlement now called Bright Angel Pueblo. Roughly 900 to 1,000 years ago, it was home to an extended family living near. Thousands of archaeological sites have been documented across Grand Canyon National Park, Yet only a fraction of its immense landscape has been intensively inventoried. That number is often used to suggest that almost anything. In one sense, that is true. The canyon almost certainly contains unrecorded camps, structures, artifacts. But an unsurveyed landscape is not evidence for a foreign empire. The discoveries already documented form recognizable patterns connected to the long history of indigenous peoples in the South. That history is 11 federally recognized tribes are traditionally associated. They include the Havasupai, Hualapai, Hopi, Navajo, Zuni, and several southern Paiute communities, among others. For these peoples, the canyon is not it is a homeland, a place of ancestors, and a living culture. Locations that outsiders describe only as archaeological sites may also be sacred places connected to emergence, migration, ceremony, and identity. The confluence of the Colorado and Little Colorado rivers, for example, holds deep spiritual importance for multiple tribal communities. Hopi tradition connects the area with the Sipapuni, a place of emergence into this world. The confluence and surrounding landscape also hold cultural importance for the Zuni, Dene, and other tribes traditionally associated with Grand Canyon. Not every location should be mapped for public curiosity. Not every object should be removed and displayed. Protecting a place can respect living people as well as preserve ancient evidence. This is where the legend of the Egyptian cavern causes real harm. It does more than introduce a questionable claim. It places outsiders at the center of a landscape whose actual history is indigenous. The imagined foreign civilization becomes advanced and mysterious, while the achievements of the people who truly lived here are treated as. The evidence tells the opposite. The deepest confirmed human history of the Grand Canyon belongs not to visitors from Egypt or Asia, but to generations of people who learned how to travel, farm, build, hunt, worship, and survive within one of the most demanding landscapes. So, what is really hidden beneath? There are caves that have not been fully documented. There are archaeological sites that have not yet been. There are fossil deposits capable of changing what scientists know about vanished animals in ancient climates. And there are culturally sensitive places whose locations may never be released. These are genuine unknown, but they do not provide evidence for the underground civilization described. After more than a century, the Kincaid story still rests on one anonymous newspaper. No confirmed cavern, artifact collection, excavation report, photograph, inscription, mummy, or Smithsonian record has established that the discovery occurred as described. The most reasonable conclusion is that the story was fabricated, greatly exaggerated, or assembled from the era's popular fascination with lost civilizations. Its survival, however, is not mysterious. The Grand Canyon is almost perfectly designed. It is enormous enough to contain unexplored. Its cliffs make verification. Its caves are protected by. Many locations are deliberately kept. Its formations carry names drawn from Egyptian, Hindu, Buddhist, Greek, and Norse traditions. And the Smithsonian name gives the old newspaper account an appearance of authority. Each fact is real. The false impression emerges when those facts are disconnected from their explanations and assembled into a conspiracy. Caves are restricted because they are fragile and dangerous. Archaeological locations are protected because looting can destroy them, and because some remain sacred to living communities. The mythological place names came from modern surveyors, not ancient settlers. And a newspaper can print a detailed story without making that story. The lesson reaches far beyond the grand. Mysteries should invite investigation, not replace it. A claim becomes stronger when evidence can be inspected, dated. When every missing record is treated as proof of a cover-up, there is no longer a way to separate discovery from imagination. The real Grand Canyon needs no invented civilization to make it extraordinary. Its rocks preserve nearly 2 billion years of Earth history. Its caves hold traces of extinct animals and ancient environments. Its archaeological sites document human ingenuity, and its living tribal connections remind us that history is not simply. It survives in communities, traditions, and relationships. Perhaps the greatest secret of the canyon is not that an advanced civilization disappeared beneath it. It is that the most remarkable story was visible all along, while generations of treasure hunters searched for something more exotic. The question is no longer whether Egyptians built a hidden city. The question is why we needed them. And if we want to understand the real stone technology of ancient Egypt, we must leave the legends of the Grand Canyon behind. Our next investigation begins where the evidence actually survives in the quarries, monuments, and precisely worked stone of